On behalf of CADR 21, I'd like to invite the guest speaker of the day for the second lecture and the moderators. It's my pleasure to introduce the moderators, Dr. Ranganathan sir, being a own student of sirs. I'm very honored. And Dr. Nadeem Jeddi sir. Dr. Ranganathan sir is a professor and head of the Department of Ragas Dental College and Hospital from the Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Pathology. Sir is the fellow Academy of American Academy of Oral and Maxillofacial Pathology, and currently is the president of Asian Society of Oral and Maxillofacial Pathology and secretary of International Association of Oral Pathology. He is a prolific researcher, and he has received many awards, like to quote few: Bennett Graduate Research Award, and with his areas of interest is cancer, pre-cancer, and oral submucous fibrosis and stem cells research. Moving on to the next moderator, Dr. Nadeem Jeddi sir is a professor and head of the Department of Oral Pathology from Toy Muhambi Dental College and Hospital, and he is serving as a joint register of Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute. He has many awards, and he has published a lot of research papers to his credit. So I'll invite the moderators for this session. Over to you, Nadeem sir, to introduce the speaker.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And it's indeed our honor and privilege to be here and introducing Dr. Ramya. Dr. Ramya is a professor and head of oral biology, Department of Savitha Dental College. She's also the Assistant Dean, Office of Media Management, secured her gold medal in postgraduate program, and was selected for the Inspire Scholarship Program for pursuing PhD program by Department of Science and Technology, New Delhi in the year 2010. She also has a postgraduate diploma in tobacco control for Annamalai University. She's an expert in the field of salivomics. She facilitated the validation of biomarkers in detection of oral squamous cell carcinoma and oral pre-malignant disorders. She was the co-investigator in DST TIDE project, which involved development of a novel neuroelectrostimulator for management of salivary secretion in xerostomia. She is passionate about physiotherapeutics and is currently working as establishment of in vitro disease models of oral potentially malignant disorders. He is currently working on a joint project with National Center of Nanoscience and Nanotechnology, University of Madras, on nanoscale flexible hemostat funded by BIRAC, New Delhi. She has 60 publications and has co-authored 4 textbooks, 1 international and 5 national patents. She is also the director of Triumph Academy, which serves as a center of excellence in dentistry. I welcome you, Dr. Ramya. Go ahead with your presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Ramya.
Yeah, yes. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is, Ramya. You can go ahead.
Thank you so much, and good morning, one and all. It's a privilege to be again at the home ground, my alma mater. I'm always grateful to that lovely place which chiseled me to what I am today. And many, many thanks, Mahalakshmi ma'am, for having thought about me to be among such a prestigious forum today. And added to all the credits, I'm really honored and humbled, I would say, to have very senior pathologists whom we look as inspirations, Ranganathan sir and Nadeem sir. I'm really humbled with your presence today. And thank you so much again, ma'am. So today, actually, my presentation is about salivary diagnostics in karyology. So the moment we all know about saliva, we hear about saliva, there's a lot of promise the word shows. But still, there's so many ifs and buts about the entire field of salivomix. And it just not stops with karyology. The field of salivomix is so widespread in many, many branches, not only related to dentistry. Saliva has really extended its arms, thrown out its potential in most of the chronic diseases, I would say systemic diseases as well. So it's a very interesting phenomenon and very interesting biological fluid. If you just browse through what saliva is, there are so many beautiful descriptive names given with this particular fluid, because it's such a simple fluid, but it's got so much of scope and so much of huge potential inside it. So that is how it is. And the descriptive words are so interesting. It is definitely unique and it is readily accessible. And that's what makes it the best diagnostic fluid, I would say. And now, having taken over as a head of oral biology department, I've been assigned to take care of saliva diagnostics at Savita. So with that expertise and my previous expertise related to salivary biomarkers, I'm here to present to you about salivary diagnostics in dental caries. So a quick look at what saliva is, because it feels complete once we know all the facts. So saliva is actually, we know that it is a byproduct of major and minor salivary glands, and it is actually made of 99.5% of water and just 0.5% of solutes. It is just that 0.5% of solutes that helps us to make it as a diagnostic fluid, and it serves in diagnosis with just that 0.5% of solutes, but that makes it very, very interesting. And that is the most challenging part of it also, because it is very important for us to know that once you know that it is only 0.5% which is available for us to test, the sensitivity of the diagnostic testing becomes very, very critical and crucial. So that is why still now we don't have any laboratory just giving us salivary diagnosis. Till date, we go and give serum or blood or urine for all our diagnostic tests. But I'm sure that all our diagnostic tests or any laboratory would all turn to have a very big portion for dedicated for saliva in the near future, considering the fact that science has advanced really well with a lot of multiplex arrays. So that is a very important statement. And we know that the major salivary glands contribute about 90% and minor is about 10%. These all would be sounding very, very basic. But what we need to understand is such minute details have to be recollected and have to be browsed upon for us to know about more about the research related to saliva. Because we know that all these come mixed when we take unstimulated saliva. So there are a lot of differences which every gland has to offer. So if we can take gland specific saliva, there is a lot much more to read and lot much more to actually investigate and intervene upon. So that is when your gland specific saliva has a lot of scope. And we know that minor salivary glands is only 10%. And the most important statement which would keep coming when you read about salivary research is stimulated and unstimulated saliva. That doesn't require any explanation, but these are very important terminologies which we should remember as we go or read through or hear upon salivary diagnostics. So we have around 1,200 ml being secreted per day. That's a huge amount. And 2/3 of your unstimulated saliva come from submandibular glands. And look at this. The moment you stimulate the saliva by giving a lozenge or any other stimulatory vehicle, it becomes, the parotids become more stimulated, and it's the parotids which take a dominative role with stimulated saliva. All these are very important deterministic factors as you plan to do any kind of research in salivary gland diagnostics. And again, the flow rate is very, very important. Now that we are doing a symposium in karyology, flow rate has a lot to say, and we definitely need to remember this particular value, which is very, very vital. So 0.3 to 0.4 ml per minute is the salivary flow rate, unstimulated salivary flow rate. So that's very, very important. And it increases as it gets stimulated. So always remember unstimulated flow rate. We know that if there is a stimulation, we all salivate at even the thought of food and other stimulatory products and pictures. Okay, so saliva is actually more hypotonic, and we know that whole saliva rate increases, the tonicity increases, and so on. All these are dependent on the nervous regulation that the saliva works upon. So this is again a very basic slide about saliva, but again, this needs to be known. So minor salivary glands is mostly mucus. There is one minor salivary gland which is serous, but they are predominantly mucus. And then we have the parotids, which is serous, and the others are all mixed. And now we go into the detailed part of why is saliva considered as a diagnostic fluid, because as the serum enters your fluid route, the serum also enters the saliva through multiple sources. So the movement of this serum makes saliva equally potential enough to diagnose any condition. Again, as already said, the only thing which is challenging about saliva is just that you need to use a diagnostic instrument or a diagnostic testing, which is very, very sensitive to grab that 0.5% of that solute composition. And this is again a very interesting overview, which all of you must know, because this is what is very important for us to understand. Though we know that it is 0.5%, you can see that everything spreads out from that 0.5%. So we have organic and inorganic and even gases, and that is what you actually need to know. So enzymes we have organics and inorganic component. Inorganic component, most of us are very sure, but it is this organic component that plays a vital role in salivary diagnostics in karyology. So these enzymes and these organics are very, very important. So when I say organics, it's predominantly the proteins and the proteases and the enzymes as such. So they're very, very important. So please do remember that your organic composition of saliva makes the most important role or plays a vital, crucial role in salivary diagnostics and karyology. Again, to quickly browse through the inorganic components, we know that calcium and phosphate are very important mineralizing ions, which make up the tooth, and they are also present in the saliva in these concentrations and are important. So as we try to intervene these ionic concentrations in saliva, we know that we can make them hypersaturated. At the same time, that can help in remineralization of even initial caries lesions. Fluoride, of course, doesn't require much explanation, but it doesn't get complete without mentioning the word fluoride. So the composition or the levels of fluoride content in saliva is very, very important again. So plays a very vital role in mineralization. Now we move on to the buffer systems, which again are very, most important deterministic factors in caries formation and even in caries prevention is your buffer systems. So the major buffering system in the saliva is your carbonate system, and this is what actually plays a very important role in the establishment of caries lesion. There's another buffering system, that is your thiocyanate, and other inorganic components which are very important and has to be mentioned are sodium and potassium. There are other inorganic components as well. A quick look through the functions of saliva. The most important thing is just that it just flushes out and then cleans that particular part of the oral cavity. We are more concerned about the hard tissue right now because we are addressing the caries forum. So physico-mechanical flushing of those hard tissue structures, that is a tooth apparatus, is what is the main role of saliva. As it does this mechanical flushing, it also lubricates and makes a permeability barrier. It provides antimicrobial action, provides buffering action, aids in digestion, mineralization, aids in taste and tissue repair. And then we have to know about what are the tooth protective components of saliva, again to re-emphasize the hard tissue components of the tooth structure. So the buffering, most important thing, which are very specifically tooth specific eye or buffering ability. Please recollect the carbonate system and the thiocyanate system, which was mentioned. Cleansing effect is clearly because of the physico-mechanical cleansing effect which saliva has to offer. And then antimicrobial actions, it's because of the antimicrobial peptides which are inherently present in saliva. And then further, maintenance of saliva supersaturated with calcium and phosphate ions are very, very important. And please do remember, these are all naturally present in the saliva. So that's very important. And as it goes, it just not restricts itself with those factors which were already said. There are other important things about the adhesion, bacterial adhering proteins, and other innate defense factors and specific defense factors which are important. Again, this is an overview about what was told earlier. So we can quickly see that there are lots of events which actually the saliva play a role. And now we move on to a very important components about salivary diagnostics, especially in karyology. So the antimicrobial proteins in the glandular saliva, please do recollect that these are more specific to the major salivary glands, and they are very, very important determinants in playing or enforcing or entrusting an antimicrobial action. So we can see that there is mucins which are important, immunoglobulins, then glycoproteins, cystatins and histatins, and then we also have agglutinins, lysozymes, lactoferrin, lactoperoxidase, cathelicidin and defensins. All these particular antimicrobial proteins have a very, very important role to play in the preventive action or protective action of the tooth against microbial insult. So when we say microbial insult, we know that the microbes are going to secrete acids, and that acidic and acidogenic bacteria are going to have a very damaging effect on the hard tissues. So these are the antimicrobial proteins which are going to present with not only antimicrobial activity, they are also good enough to produce demulcent activity. When we say demulcent activity, it means that it is capable of coating the hard and soft tissues with a mucin-like or a coating which is good enough to aid in protection. So aid in protection against any kind of irritants. So they're antimicrobial and also they provide demulcent activity. And other things which are again very important is that they either inhibit or they are good enough to even aid in killing of the bacteria. So these are very important. Now we go on to today's topic. So we know that caries, what is caries about? My speaker earlier had spoken to you about enough about dental caries, but I would always like to add a touch upon the prevalence rate. The most important thing which I usually keep talking in any forum about infectious diseases, please do remember the most prevalent disease of infectious etiology. Please remember, this is nothing related to oral disease. Most prevalent chronic disease of infectious etiology, chronic disease of infectious etiology are your oral diseases, specifically dental caries, and put together with periodontitis, they almost range up to, or they affect 3.6 billion people worldwide. And specifically about dental caries, they affect 2.4 billion people worldwide, which is a huge number. And that lays a lot of responsibility on our heads as dentists, dental healthcare providers, because we are the ones who are handling this chronic condition of infectious etiology compared to any other disease of the human body. So most common, and that is why we need to give solutions and we need to derive solutions for preventive and for restorative management of dental caries. So these again are just the definitions. I would just quickly browse through. You have heard enough about dental caries. But the one thing which I would like to highlight here is one particular beautiful word which says multifactorial, a complex interplay. So these two things are to be remembered because we are talking about diagnostics. The moment we say multifactorial and we say complex interplay, the pathogenesis becomes complex. As the pathogenesis becomes complex, your way of diagnosing that particular disease becomes difficult. The moment I say such a statement, all of you might be thinking, what is there? Caries shows out beautifully clinically, but it does not about clinical diagnosis. What we are more concentrating here is the preventive management. When a child is born and is 6 months old, we know that the caries, the teeth erupts, and then from there, heart tissues are subjected to aciduric and acidogenic bacteria. It is at that stage, from that stage, the parents need to know whether the caries can be prevented by doing all kinds of diagnosis based on this beautiful and non-invasive unique biologic fluid, saliva. So having said that, saliva and dental caries have a very beautiful association with each other, a very nice interrelationship with each other, and that goes into without saying, because this is a very well-known Keys Venn diagram, which right from undergraduation we have been seeing this through and through. And please do remember that all the three parts of your Keys most critical areas, that is your tooth, that's the plaque and the substrate put together, everything is actually with saliva, and saliva is affecting all the three components. So that makes it a most important and relevant fluid to use for diagnosis more than any other testing method. So having said this, saliva is very important for to be used as a diagnostic fluid. So we know that all the three important major contributory mechanisms of caries is saliva interrelated. So having said that, saliva as a diagnostic fluid is being a very favorite statement among researchers, especially oral disease researchers. We've been using saliva through and through with multiple type of researches, and having had a lot of publications and research work with oral cancer diagnosis using saliva, my experience with saliva diagnosis is that you will need to have a very, very sensitive equipment for diagnosis. And that was already said, and I'm repeating that statement again. Related to saliva and cariology, we have conducted an experiment related to enam gene polymorphism using salivary samples about the genetic predisposition of caries. So that is the experience with saliva. And we all like to just give a very non-invasive sample or take a non-invasive sample for operation, because the patient or any other, even a small child, would be double willing to give such a non-invasive sample. So why are we so obsessed about this non-invasive sampling, and what does this saliva has to offer and the armory which the saliva is made of, or the defense mechanisms which there is inherent in saliva, are your salivary immunoglobulins. So please make a note that from here, every part of the substance which is going to be discussed can all be utilized for as a a marker for saliva caries preventive mechanisms or cariology diagnostics. So salivary immunoglobulins, we all know that IgA is more common, and IgA is actually a secretory antibody. So not surprising that saliva has it in large quantities. Mucins are very important. Please recollect that I told about the demulcent activity. Mucins, in addition to giving an inhibitory role or providing an inhibitory role, also contributes to formation of the demulcent activity, which is very important protective mechanism. So having said that about immunoglobulins, mucins, proteins. So this is more concentrated in parotid saliva. Having read that important statement, so in case if you want to read about or know more about just this proline-rich glycoprotein, so if you want to just do a study only on proline-rich glycoprotein and then assess, then what happens is you need to collect a gland-specific protein, gland-specific saliva, specifically from your Stenson's duct, that is your parotid. So there are some collection devices which can specifically take, and that can give you a very specific result. So this is very importantly more contributory to acting on Fusobacterium nucleatum. And then we have lysozyme. Lysozyme again is the most popular antimicrobial enzyme. So this actually hydrolyzes the cell wall polysaccharides and makes the bacteria more vulnerable to damage. So far we have actually seen your immunoglobulins, then your proteins, and then your lysozymes. And then we also have lactoferrins. Lactoferrin is again addition to lysozyme, it is an antimicrobial protein. Further, we have salivary agglutinin. This is very important because this has actually potential to agglutinate the S mutants bacteria itself. Having said that, we know that S mutants is the most important bacteria as far as karyology is concerned, and these agglutinin has the ability to bind to S mutants. So if we can isolate agglutinin, or as an interventional strategy, if you can make a agglutinin molecule and maybe supply it in the form of a mouthwash or a gel form or a paste form, or however you want it, or you add it in your restorative materials or whatever it is, integrated in any form of restorative material or a utility material, it would be just great. So research keeps arising with such in-depth understanding of the contents. And the salivary armory goes on like this. There are further other antimicrobial peptides like histatins, defensins, and human cathetrin. All this was shown to you as a table earlier, and all this has to be remembered. Now, the research evidence till date, what is available as research evidence till date? So how far have we gone, and what is the summary of the research evidence as far as saliva and dental caries is concerned? This particular slide will tell you everything about the detail of what has been done and what is the inference. So as we go about seeing this, flow rate is very important. So we saw the unstimulated flow rate earlier. So increased flow rate, increased pH, and increased buffering all has higher values when compared to your caries-free individuals. And it is caries-free individuals also have higher calcium and phosphorus concentration, making the saliva supersaturated and increasing the remineralization ability. So we know that when there is an aciduric bacteria acting on the tooth substance, there is always a chance that there is the demineralization happening or loss of inorganic constitution. But when the saliva is overloaded or supersaturated with such beautiful ions, there is always chance that it would get remineralized. So, and having said that, higher ammonia concentration is also more in caries-free individuals. Higher concentration of ATP, fructose diphosphate, aldolase activity, auto uptake, increased opsonine activity, increased antibacterial activity, specifically to lactobacillus and streptococci, more leukocytes and epithelial cells to leukocyte proportion. All these are a summary of evidence which has been very differentiating between your caries-free and caries-prone individuals. So these are very, very important. So for you to further work on all these areas and further strengthen these research areas to make the research outcomes more translatable. And it's just not that. What happens is, but having said that, is it very easy? How far have we gone into the salivary diagnostics? But sadly, what happens is, as you keep browsing through any systematic reviews based on saliva and dental caries, there is not very much of very strong evidence which says that use this test and it will give you a very high sensitivity and specificity. It is not so, because of the complex pathogenetic mechanisms behind dental caries. Till date, there are many basic tests available, but what happens is the studies which are conducted are usually of low or moderate risk of bias. So there is a tendency to make them less specific or to be less reliable. And the most important thing here is what it be to, now the trend is towards targeting the proteins content of saliva rather than even the other enzymatic components. So the protein components is more importantly looked upon. So caries risk assessment is a very important statement for all of you out there in that Karyology Symposium. So caries risk assessment, definitely saliva forms a very important role, and we know that it assesses the microbial population, the protein content, the gene content and the transcriptomes. But it having said this big statement about Carey's risk assessment, how far has it progressed in developing country like India, and how far is it feasible in a public health forum like in India, where we know that the population strength is very high, the funding mechanisms towards oral health diseases is not that promising than what it is given for other chronic illnesses. So with having said that, right now we are only restricted to assessing the microbial population of the saliva, and the kits which are right now available are only related to the microbiome assessment rather than genomic and transcriptomic approaches. But please do remember that these three other options are also very, very potential about salivary diagnostics. But again, as we talk about research statements like that, nothing should stop our goals about research. We should keep on pursuing and dreaming about such high-end imaging and diagnostic techniques. Only then we can actually do something to our fellow mankind who are in dire need. So this is again a very simple basic thing which has to be told when saliva and dental caries is talked about. So as I already mentioned, saliva can be, the caries risk assessment using saliva is usually through microbiome. And then we had bigger names about the proteome, the genome, and the transcriptome. But we know that microbiome is easily feasible in our country. And in addition to that, we know that there are other methods, and the calorimetric method and all have been there in use for past many, many decades. So having said that, we will quickly look into the microbiomics, which are very important. So the most important test kits which are available are your S mutants kit, that is available by two companies, most commonly by your 3M and your GC, and Dentsply also supplies these strep mutants detection kits. We also have detection kits for lactobacillus, but surprisingly, as we are actually in the process of developing salivary diagnostics in our institution, what happens is as I started placing orders, you would be surprised that GC Asia simply refused it, that they have stopped manufacturing salivary detection kits. And the Dentsply suppliers in India, whom we contacted, also refused to supply the kits because they say that the supply which in India is not available, or there is reduced production in their own country based in Europe and things like that. So though I said microbiome assessment in India is most feasible because comparatively they are more economical, though they are from big names like GC and Dentsply and 3M, you'll be surprised that their availability is very, very limited. I'm not sure whether it could be because of the COVID transaction, which has really changed the export and import flow. But still, we have been really working hard in procuring these kits, but we are finding it difficult. So having said that, you can actually develop a salivary microbiome kit. You can actually do a customizable kit, just identifying that antigen. And we know that biosensor making is not a problem nowadays at all. All your high-end technological institutes right here in Chennai, which I'm aware of, right from your IITs and any institution with a very good physics background, are very keen in making biosensors. So you can actually make your own salivary detection kits here, considering that the availability is becoming restricted from abroad. We can make some Indianized versions of salivary microbiome kits. These calorimetric kits, the moment you see this, you would remember taking up your third year and final year examination. So they're all the very well-known popular ones. So this is just for completion's sake. So buffer testing, enzyme detection, all these are very, very commonly used methods. But again, having said that, is all of them enough? So I mentioned about microbiome test, I mentioned about enzymatic test, I mentioned about calorimetric test, and now we have flow rate. Flow rate doesn't require any very big machinery, very, very simple customized collection devices. Very creatively you can make on your own and then do, but are they enough to tell a very confirmatory statement about the preventive management or any particular statement about the caries progress and things like that. It is not that easy. Again, coming back to this, reverting to the same statement, saliva diagnosis in caries, cariology is challenging mainly because it is a very complex etiology. And again, you can also assess salivary ions and ions, inorganic ions, and then check. So as already mentioned, calcium and phosphorus ions presence in saliva is very important. So in case if their levels are lesser, you can simple by just supplementing by giving a paste which would a remineralizing paste. There are many in the market out there, and those are enough to supply a rich supply of calcium and phosphorus ions. And additionally, you can also be informed that selenium is actually increased, and it is actually, if it is increased, it is indicative of dental caries. So that is actually an indicator of dental caries. So these are the ions which we need to know. And please recollect the other ions which were said in the earlier slides. Sodium and potassium also plays a very important role. And again, this is to re-emphasize that the studies which are being done right now, the cross-sectional studies, which you can browse through about the utility of saliva in diagnosis, have a very vague response, and the evidence which is collected and very good systematic reviews have clearly pointed out the deficiencies. And they say that it is just, if the study is just using a DMF index alone for assessing the caries activity, it may not be enough. So that is why, considering this particular statement, the study which we conducted in our department when I was in SRM earlier, we did a very huge caries risk assessment before studying the saliva for enam gene polymorphism. We had a very elaborate questionnaire which covered every aspect of the caries process. We didn't leave any stone unturned, and the assessment sheet used to be so huge. And we even went to add on to the complete family tree. The complete pedigree chart was also added to the caries risk assessment. So in that way, if you have a study which includes a very wide array of factors which are contributing to caries, and with that, if you do a cross-sectional study, then that kind of studies can be taken very seriously. So these are the flaws which are there in the current study designs which are available. And these are some very interesting facts which you must know. So a low flow rate combined with a low moderate buffer effect clearly indicates pro-salivary resistance against microbial attack. So that is logically straightforward. So when you have a low salivary flow rate, for example, xerostomia, that again is a very favorite research area of mine. So xerostomia patients definitely have a low flow rate, and we all know that the moment flow rate decreases, buffer capacity is altered, and then there is poor resistance to microbial attack. And there is inverse relationship between buffer capacity and caries experience. Again, that is very logical. And at a population level, again, there is a inverse correlation with caries susceptibility. In elderly, again, there is an inverse correlation. And salivary buffer effect is not that very popularly documented, though this when the studies which are cited here are all older, but this is the state of evidence even now. So having given you an overview about the salivary armory which is there present inherently, we have gone through every part of saliva what is available for testing and diagnosis, and we saw what are the tests which are available right now. And I had also elaborated about the commercially available kits and the problems with the availability. And again, having mentioned a word about the commercially available kits, I just spoke about the availability, and I told you that they are not available right now, and we have been really trying very hard to procure them. But in case if the companies restart supplying it to India, will that solve the problem? No, because the sensitivity and the specificity rates are still not very convincing. Comparatively, they are better, or they are better than they can offer you a better solution to the methods which are right now available. But is that enough? Definitely not. There is a long way to go. And this is one very recent study which talks about protease fingerprinting. So this protease fingerprinting is supposed to be very interesting, and more it covers the diagnostics in depth. So we know that fingerprinting are unique. And again, protease fingerprinting, the moment you see such a statement, it implies that the protease fingerprinting can now be made more target specific, or it could be more individualistic. And that is what this paper talks about. And it's a very interesting read and a very well conducted study. So I would recommend this particular paper to be read again and again. And all that it needs to tell you is that the protease profiling in caries prone or in caries patient or in the caries tissue sample, whichever you are isolating or whatever you're doing, the study says that you can actually do a complete protease profiling. And they have checked these proteases by using a very, very high advanced multiple multiplex array method, very advanced, and I don't think we have it in India. So that was the method which was used, and they were actually able to identify many proteases. But again, what was found was there was very big differences individually itself, and even in individually, the area which actually was representative of a protease was not uniformly the same in deeper lesions and so on. So there were variations, individual caries, lesion wise also. So having said that, please do remember that there can be differences on a person to person basis. It is just not person to person basis. There could be differences based on tooth wise. Anterior tooth might show differences, or there might be differences based on site specific differences, like smooth surface caries are showing a different protease profiling. Your pit and fissure caries might show a different protease profiling, and so on. And it does not stop with that. Inside that particular, say for example, you take a smooth surface caries and then analyze it on a series of do it on a series of methods, and you will find that the protease levels differed in various locations inside the lesion itself. So when you hear such complicated statements, it would definitely feel more, not very promising. But what the point which has to be taken from this salivary protease fingerprinting statement is that there are very, very high advanced methods which are actually coming up, and this identification of proteins are order of the day, and they have been given a lot of importance because they are more specific to the caries pathogenesis. The current evidences on caries pathogenesis and the protein profiling and the protease profiling are found to be more specific than the ones which were actually used earlier. So these are actually even considered to be more advantageous than your microbiomics itself. So having said all these, so the future prospects in salivary diagnostics in cariology is that the present evidence clearly states that whatever methods which are available as commercial products, commercial chase-side methods are not that highly sensitive and specific, which are very, very important for any diagnostic tool. The word sensitivity and specificity are very, very important, and it's got huge importance when the moment we say we are actually using a diagnostic tool or we are going to manufacture a diagnostic tool. So whatever you have in hand or whatever you are desiring to make on your own means that that has to have very high sensitivity and specificity, so that there is no false positives and false negatives. So all these are very, very important, and the need of the hour is actually having a very high advanced diagnostic method which would go into identifying that 0.5% of solutes present in saliva. And that is why the salivomics department of oral biology in our institution is currently working on to procure a very, very highly sensitive instrument which is about to arrive any time, and which will take salivomics to a very, very great heights, and it would make it possible to make it available for diagnosis of using saliva, and that would really be a breakthrough. But it is still in process. And why is such a very sensitive instrument used? The moment we talk about high-end multiplex instrument, please do remember it would really cost us in crores. But does it sound feasible? Definitely not. But what I would suggest is simple biosensors are nowadays very easily available, and we can actually think of just mixing and matching few biomarkers related to all the salivary gland armory or the saliva armory, which I just mentioned, adding on to the most important molecules. Like, for example, the current molecule, which is very famous, which has been declared as very one biomarker, which is specific to saliva diagnosis, PEP-E, and then there are other proteins which are identified also. Such things can be made into a biosensor, and we can just use them as very simple detection kits. So all that needs a lot of interest and depth, or that interest to make something different, to make a difference the society. And please do understand, we are actually talking about a very important disease that has got a very, very high prevalence rate. So now that we are actually coming to the concluding part, so still there are many questions in mind. And please do look at the reference cited over there. It is 20 years back, but I found that this questions are still not perfectly answered at all. So why can we not predict who will get the disease? Are we ready? Not yet. Why do we not become immunized? Are we anywhere closer to the dental vaccine? Though we have numerous reviews talking about dental vaccine, your caries vaccines, are we anywhere close? Do any center offer caries vaccines? No, we are not yet close. So how much of saliva is enough for an individual to survive your caries onslaught? Do we know that? At two. And which salivary components are very protective? We know them, but there are so many things which are still deeper, which we are yet to know. So there are still very, very many unknown molecules of intervention. Not all salivary components are still known to us. So that makes a mine of information waiting for you to open, dig deep, and find out newer interventions and newer molecules. And which salivary components predispose for caries? Again, the same. There is still more to intervene and still more to explore. So having said that, I feel there are a lot of young minds over there waiting to dig deep inside. Please do understand, whether you are a student, whether you are a researcher, or whether you are a faculty, if you do a proper publication in dental caries, or why not go to a publication, do a proper caries, do you know that it has a lot of impact, because you are actually doing a study on a disease which is highly more prevalent. And that is why we are actually looking forward. And in case if your work is very good, you can publish it in a very high impact journal, because dental caries research is given so much of thrust abroad. And the high impact dental domain journals all belong to dental caries and periodontics as well. So caries research is so welcome. And having said that, again, to re-emphasize, salivary diagnostics in cariology, though there is a huge scope, low concentration of analytes, that is at 0.5%, in compared to blood is the challenge. And that is why we need very, very high sensitive devices and sensors to detect them. And acceptance of salivary biomarker with the mechanistic rationale is still something which has to be established. And that is why it's still not being translated to chairside. And this is the paper which we said, which we went on to do very elaborate study. The caries risk assessment, which we said, remember I said DMF index alone cannot be enough for, if you're any cross-sectional study using caries, you will have to have a huge data related to your caries risk assessment before doing any cross-sectional study about caries. And then we close on this today's topic. So the challenges, it's a very interesting field. Still, though there is only 0.5%, please do remember that there is so many more which we are not known yet, and there is huge scope of research. Keep tapping them, keep doing multiples of research activity, identify some marker which we still may be unknown, but it could be that biomarker which could be very, very highly caries specific. If not, what we need to remember is caries is multifactorial. And till date, the statement, overview statement is that There is no single biomarker which will give you a conclusive evidence or a conclusive statement about your caries prevention or the progression. So we need a multiple array of markers, but we never know. There could be one marker hiding there inside that beautiful non-invasive biological fluid left out to your intervention. And it's my time to thank all of my well-wishers out there and people who are very supportive. Dr. Deepak sir, Dr. Shija ma'am, Dr. Pratibha ma'am, Rajkumar sir, who's been the mentor and guide always, and Malish ma'am specifically, because I'm so proud to be presenting it in the Conservative and Endodontics Forum, because it's more prestigious to us. We have been used to doing it in our Pathology Association, and it is so nice to be a part of the symposium as well. Thank you so much, ma'am. Many, many thanks for having considered me in this forum. And thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your comprehensive and informative lecture. We'll move on to the question answer session. Over to you, Ranganathan sir and Nadeem sir.
Thank you, Vijay. I'm
Yeah.
audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you can go ahead.
First, let me thank Dr. Ramya for this fantastic lecture on saliva. I think it was a very comprehensive and exhaustive review. And next, let me thank Dr. Mahalakshmi and Dr. Vijay for having extended an invitation. I really enjoyed the talk, and I'm sure all the registrants are going to find it very, very useful. And thank you again for having me in this forum. Let me quickly summarize. I have a series of questions which shows the amount of interest this has generated. Now, there is a very, very old saying by Mendel. I thought you were going to quote that, saliva does not have the drama of blood, does not carry the sincere and does not have emotional appeal of, tears. I was trying to wonder how can I describe saliva, and I have this beautiful description. I think you said it's, let me quote you. It's a beautiful, non-invasive biological fluid. And I think that sort of sums up as far as saliva is concerned. Before I go to the questions, let me quickly summarize what was done exhaustively. And there's been a lot of thanks that you gave us. I think you spoke about the importance of content, emphasized that it's only 0.5%, but it's still useful in dental caries and the health of the oral cavity. You spoke about the flow. And then you also emphasized that in addition to calcium, phosphorus, and fluoride, which we always talk about, the function of saliva as far as its cleansing activity, its buffering capacity, its defensive capabilities, and supersaturation of these ions such as calcium and phosphorus is very, very important in caries prevention. And that's what I think all the clinicians who are attending this meeting are, sort of eagerly waiting to hear from you. So that was a fantastic comprehensive overview. I think you drew attention to three major problems in saliva. Let me quickly add on to that before I go to the questions in the interest of time. To analyze salivary content is difficult because of two reasons. One, the solutes are only 0.5%, of which the organic is the most important, and that makes it even less than 0.5% when you rule out the inorganic component. Second, I think flow. The problem with flow is, and I think we have a question related to that, it has a circadian rhythm. It depends on your emotions, it depends on age, and there are multiple factors which are going to influence flow. The third, the function of saliva. Now, there are two problems with function of saliva. What we normally talk about as saliva is actually a whole mouth fluid. It's a combination of salivary content, your shedded epithelium, your food stuff. And analyzing that to pure saliva has been a major problem in research. And I think that is one of the biggest stumbling block in salivary research. And the last point which I'd like to emphasize is the problem why we don't have a vaccine, why we don't develop immunity when we're working on saliva is the fact that I think the conservative dentists among this group will agree with me. More than an individual organism, it is the dysbiosis between the organisms which is very important. And when you talk about dysbiosis, it's not only the content, it's not only the microorganism, it's the tooth surface, and there are tons of billions of factors which come into play. But irrespective of all those factors, I think salivary research has come a long way. mainly because of high throughput techniques, which you rightly mentioned, and things like microfluidics, where even 0.5% can be analyzed fantastically using microliters of the fluid. So once again, let me thank you, and it was very educating for me, and I'm sure it was educating for all the audiences who attended this conference. Let me quickly move on to the questions. I think the first one is a very broad question. What are the predominant biomarkers evident in dental caries?
Okay.
You
So
want to take that?
yeah, predominant biomarkers in dental caries. So commonly what is right now being studied on a very vast mode is I would say the proteins especially. We have the histatins, the cathelicidins, and they are the ones which are right now given lot of thrust and lot of importance. And those again are belonging to your proteins. If we say about the biomarkers from over the past one decade, the last decade, and definitely the thrust would be always microbiomics. That is the most important thing. Having said about microbiomics, the most common thing is about your mutants and the lactobacillus, and it goes on like that. So microbiomics is the first one, and then followed. Now the trend is towards the developed nations are all moving towards proteins. Statins, salivary statins, we all know that has got a huge scope. And in addition, whenever there is a biomarker study, there is always additional assessment about the flow rate, additional assessment about the buffering capacity, additional assessment about the inorganic ions, and so on. So that is how it goes on. And right now, I kept mentioning about the protease part and the protease fingerprinting, which is really taken over and has got huge scope, I feel, because that has got even more in-depth pathogenetic depth about it, or a more serious pathogenetic concern. And I feel once established, that would really make a turnaround in the entire cariology pathogenesis itself. Yes.
Dr. Nadeem, would you like to ask?
Thank you. That was a very apt answer.
Dr. Nadeem, you need to unmute. Dr. Ranganathan, you can ask the next question.
Yeah, stay.
Sorry.
I hope it's audible now. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, Ramya, for a wonderful presentation. There are some questions. Is there any marker to detect unstimulated saliva?
Marker to detect unstimulated saliva. Okay. So, sir, actually, see, the moment we mentioned about unstimulated saliva, please recollect that I don't think there is any, very specific marker as far as unstimulated saliva is concerned. The moment we say unstimulated saliva, it is more pertaining to your submandibular salivary glands, and because the content or the amount of contribution is more from the submandibular salivary glands. Having said that, it is more of mucin content, which is actually more from unstimulated rather than anything. So the mucins are more in unstimulated saliva than in stimulated saliva. So that is the basic difference. So the mucins could be more in unstimulated saliva.
Fine, wonderful. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I think, can we continue with the questions, or do we have time?
Yes, a few more questions, sir.
Yeah. What is the role of defensins in dental caries?
Yeah. See, having said about defensins, we know that defensins again form a very important part of the salivary armor mechanisms or the salivary defense mechanisms. And these defensins have a very important role in counteracting the microbial action. So they are very, very important determinants for providing an inhibitory role on the oral microbiome. So they really form, we have alpha defensins and so on. So they really play a very, very strong role in providing a antimicrobial action. And also I have also read about the adhesion. They also actually target about the adhesion mechanisms also.
There's one more question, Ramya. Would you like to take it?
Yeah, please, sir.
What is the correlation between ammonia concentration and dental caries?
Ammonia, yeah. So ammonia concentration, actually, surprisingly, the level of ammonia concentration is high in caries-free individuals than in caries-prone individuals. That may look surprising because the moment we hear ammonia, we are about to discuss about the urea cycle and things like that. But surprisingly, ammonia levels are more in caries-free individuals.
Fine. Sir, over to you, sir. So any further questions, sir? Dr.
I'm
Anand?
sorry, I think I'm muted. I'm sorry about that. How do you detect increased calcium ions in saliva?
Sir, how do you?
Detect increase in the calcium ion in saliva.
Okay, how do you detect? Okay, so calcium ions are actually the most wanted in saliva. We have very, very simple calcium estimation mechanisms. So calcium levels, I would say, are very simply, you can detect by just normal calcium levels. Like what, for example, you can send your salivary samples to estimate like how they do it in serum, but provided the laboratory has to have that facility, or the laboratory technician should be aware that he can do the same method he has to be more careful in just doing it. But otherwise, calcium estimation in whole saliva is definitely possible by the same method what we do your serum calcium level estimation. Only thing is that the technician needs to be familiar with the technique. It doesn't need any high-end ELISA or nothing of that sort. Just a simple quantitative estimation of calcium level is more than enough.
Thank you. Dr. Nadeem?
So there's one more question, Ramya, from my side.
Yes, sir.
What is your take on using artificial saliva for patients with xerostomia?
That happens to be a favorite area. Ma'am, I think I would take a lot of time, but I'll just restrict. That's so tempting, sir. Thank you for that question. Anyway, so artificial saliva is very important. We all know the moment we hear the word artificial, it cannot match what the nature has to offer us, because nature has given us such a beautiful fluid, and it can never match, but still it is a vital alternative. And the biggest thing what artificial saliva can do is the physico-mechanical cleansing. That is the biggest thing which it can offer. Other things like maybe if you add on some antimicrobial agents, it can provide antimicrobial action. All that depends on the manufacturer and the person who is behind creating that artificial saliva. It is very easy to create artificial saliva. We have done it multiple number of times in our laboratory. Creating artificial saliva is so easy, and doing it in bulk also is very easy. But only thing is we need to know what should be added, what are the most critical points which are important to handle, especially in xerostomia. So xerostomia, the problem is the flow rate is decreased. So as the patient eats something, the amount of fluid which is available to take those ions to the taste receptors, everything is a challenge. So what we are actually offering through artificial saliva is only a vehicle, a liquid vehicle, which would aid in physico-mechanical cleansing and maybe to some extent lubrication actions. Otherwise, it depends on the individual composition of artificial saliva. And again, this is a huge scope for research.
I think we can wind up the question answer session now. There are a lot of questions, I know, but I hope it's okay because we are running short of time. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a minute. I'm really proud and honored, Ranganathan sir and Nadeem sir. It's really a privilege to be moderated by stalwarts like you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for having called in experts.
I should thank both of them.
Pleasure is ours, madam. Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting us, moderators. It's always a pleasure to be with Ranganathan sir.
Thank you.
And thank you for your wonderful conclusion also, Dr. Ranganathan.
Sure.
Even those 2 minutes of yours, we learned a lot, actually. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Anytime.
As always.
Jai, please do the honors.
On behalf of CADR 21, we like to honor the guest speaker with a certificate as a token of appreciation. and the wonderful moderators of this session as a token of appreciation. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir.